So in your mind, the show is done. And now we're back home with a large stack of business cards, LinkedIn profile links, and email addresses. Max, as an exhibitor at events like this, how do you navigate keeping the networking opportunities alive post-show? Let's start with you.
Yeah, thank you. I think this is an exciting place for me to be because I always make a priority out of this. This is the reason I'm going to these shows is to follow up with the relationships I built at the show. And the most important thing that I would give as a recommendation is just block off dedicated time focused on reflection. Reflect on the sessions, reflect on the networking that was done, reflect on the exhibitors and the vendor partners you met. If you just go home and go back to the busy, most likely you're going to go back and have 1,000 missed emails and a big stack of papers on your desk. You have to schedule time to reflect on what you learned at the show. Um, from a vendor specific follow-up question, if you share your information with a vendor, you're going to hear from them. If you enter a raffle with a vendor, it's not going to just go into a void. You're going to get an email. And one thing I would appreciate, it's advice, but I also would appreciate it as a vendor, is um, a, a response, even if it's not immediately positive. Hey, I'm not the right person to be talking to about this. Not right now is not the best time to be considering something like this. Um, hey, here's a more detailed view of why we can't proceed, or hey, talk to me in 3 months. That's when I'll be ready to take something like this on. And so getting a response back is good for the vendors, but it's also good for you because you better believe that vendor's going to call, email, call, email, call, email until the sun comes up. So just be ready to be responsive to the vendors and make a dedicated effort to reflect on your experience at the show.
Yeah, I think coming back, you're probably going to have a lot of contacts, a lot of emails. So that's really good advice. Elizabeth, how do you manage that?
I think it's really about, prioritizing. Number one, kind of making sure I think that that time piece is good, but kind of think about, prioritizing the relationships that you want to have. Maybe you made what you felt was a very good connection with someone. And so making sure to reach out to them and kind of establish how you want to keep up that connection. Maybe it was more of a, hey, I really liked your presentation. Maybe we could think about writing something together or presenting something together. So thinking about kind of what that purpose was as well. And I think also, thinking about how you want to use the information that you've learned. Is it something that you are kind of filing away for yourself to say that, does this go in my when I'm in charge folder? Or does this go, hey, I want to share this with my colleagues to make sure that I believe this can make an impact for our students right now. And so I think that just kind of knowing that and looking at all those buckets are really important.
Really good advice. Yeah, I think organization definitely plays a really big key part in making sure that you're not forgetting anybody, forgetting anything, and making sure that you capitalize on all of those opportunities. Gerry, is there any tips or tricks on how you manage that?
Well, I'm going to build on what Elizabeth and Max have already talked about. But the first thing I would say is when you get back home, take a deep breath.
Mm.
Just take a deep breath because you've been through a very, very powerful, very intense experience if you've prepared and conducted it the way you planned. So I think that's important. I'd build on what Max said about this organization. I think that of your time and giving yourself some opportunity to process. Um, the next step after that process is what are your goals and what are your ideas? What are you going to do with them? So I think that's really critical. It's like you just keep on building this set of goals and opportunities as you move along, and I think to Elizabeth's point about making connections and following up on those. One is to make sure you keep your promises. If you say that I'm going to give you a call or I'm really interested in following up with you, do it. I mean, we've all had those experiences where we say, you see somebody you haven't seen in a long time and say, we should get together. And then there's this standoff of who's going to be the one to organize it, right? So just be candid about it. If you're not going to follow up with somebody, don't say it, even if it's just part of a euphemism for what you're talking about. The other thing that's really important is if something has happened to you, and you're grateful for that, write a thank you note. It could be for the corporate partner dinner. It could be for the invitation to the reception. It could be, getting a sample of, a new kind of promotional item that you can share with your students. I think it's important to just, again, do the stuff your grandmother told you to do. That's really critical. Other things that I think are important are, you know, and this is back to intention again. I would say um, probably 2 weeks from when you've arrived back on campus, have yourself set an opportunity to debrief with your supervisor about what you learned and who you got to know, and what questions you may have about this particular portion of the industry, or this particular part of the association, and who else can help you with your search for more information, because there's people on your campus, or there's people in the network of your supervisor, or your supervisor's supervisor, or your executive director, or whoever it might be. I think that intention is very, very powerful. And the final thing that I would say is, find a way, without being ostentatious or braggadocious, but find a way to share what you've learned. So you don't walk around going, "Well, cool, I learned, quack, 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 quack." I mean, but there are going to be moments when you have this information and you say, "Hey, I just recently came across this information, and I think this might be valuable to our conversation," or, or I was talking to somebody at another institution, and they tried this, and these were the speed bumps that they went over. I just think that knowledge is sharing, right? And so I think we like I said, we don't need to be able to kind of be the ACUHO-I know-it-all. Um, um, that's really important. And then the final thing is, if you had a really good experience at ACUHO-I, talk to somebody who hadn't been there before and invite them to come next year. That's exactly what happened to me. I had a colleague that I worked with that went to her first ACUHO-I, and she came back raving about it and said, "Gerry, you need to go." And I was at the next ACUHO-I.
And I think that's really important, because I think as resources shift, right, the more that you can share with particularly your supervisor that you've learned something and that it's a valuable return on investment, the more that you're going to be able to kind of make sure that ensure those resources are there as well. It's an important piece.
Yeah, I think we're all very excited when we come back to share it with everybody. You want to put it on social media, you want to talk about it with your friends and your colleagues, but it's more so like how Gerry said, it's how you structure it, and making sure that you're mindful of all of that. Max, do you have any thoughts on that, or any other advice that you might want to give?
Yeah, I definitely think coming back and information sharing is critical on the vendor side as well. We learned so much about how campuses operate, how other campuses operate, and we can bring that back. That's one of the main reasons for going for the institution, is to come back with this new knowledge. My other piece of advice is, if you are a first or second time attendee and you're just getting involved, find a way to get even more involved. Volunteer. Look to a senior leader for presentation advice. Maybe you have an idea that you want to share in future years. The planning is already beginning for Campus Live next year. So being ready to be moved and take that momentum into making future years even better.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting. Yeah, I think when we leave, it's a great opportunity to start planning for next year, and making sure that you capitalize on the opportunities. Maybe you might have done something a certain way, and you're like, well, I think maybe I could do it a little differently next year. How could I do this so I don't forget? It goes back to, we're looping back around to the first part, which is the planning part of it. Is you tend to forget a lot of this, and when you're in the midst of planning, you forget, well, last year I kind of wanted to make it a priority to do it this way or what. I mean, you forget, it's been a whole year. And so making sure that you make a note of that somewhere so that you can remember next time, I'm going to do it this way.
Yeah, I think that in terms of, kind of using what you've learned at the present meeting and preparing for the next, I think um, I was always cognizant of what was going to help me justify my reason for attending the following year. Particularly if you're part of a staff, and there's a number of people who are, wanting to go, and there are limited institutional resources. I think you want to try to put yourself in the most advantageous, competitive advantage position to be ready to go. And so, if you have a plan for, I'm part of this committee now, and they're going to have an important meeting at the association event. I really need to be there, or I really am. I've got this project moving forward, and there is a college prior to the conference starting that's going to be on that topic. That's going to help you justify where you go. So, and I think Max's comment about sort of being intentional about what you want to be involved in. So, everybody's position description is their professional development plan. Um, but there may be more that you want in your professional development. And I think many professionals, many student affairs and campus housing folks have found a way to enhance their professional development through involvement in the association. It could be that it's a specific task force. It could be that it's a specific committee. It could be that you just want to be involved somehow. One of the ways to find out how a program gets accepted is to be on the program committee. You kind of know what people are looking for. So, it's really common sense kinds of things, but I think those are really important. I think that the other thing that's important as you come back to campus is that you kind of readjust to your speed of life. Um, it's you're really in a very accelerated and exciting time, and maybe when you get back to your campus, you're going to need to take extra walks that week because your mind just needs to settle, or you need to cook up a batch of chili and buy a bunch of hot dogs and have a bunch of people come over and just chill. Um, I just think you got to find out what that is. But getting back into that speed of your life, I think is really important. So if working out is important, if reading is important, if you're involved in academic study and you still need to get your proposal together, get it together. I might suggest also one other thing related to that is if you have the leave time, take an extra day of leave before you go back to work. It's going to help you make that transition uh, to the speed of life. And then the day after, you're ready to go for work. You've got your head together personally. You picked up the laundry. You got the dog from the sitter. You got a chance to catch up with mom and dad about what happened at the conference, and whether or not you met your future partner or whatever it might be. um, I just think that that kind of buffer is really smart for you to do, because there's always the work's always going to be there, and if you're really not ready to do it, then maybe it's a good idea to take a little bit extra time to get ready to do it.
Following up after the show, it is essential to maintain and build on those connections. Um, with that being said, Elizabeth, Gerry, and Max, if I could ask you in a short response, what key advice would you give to our viewers for preparing for the show, attending the show, and making sure that you maximize your time and your opportunities after the show? What would that be? And let's start with Elizabeth.
Sure. My advice would be to relish in it. This may be one of many ACUHO-Is. This may be your only ACUHO-I. So really, just be in the moment and take take a breath and enjoy the time that you're there and be present.
Max?
Yeah, I think this is going to be very similar to Elizabeth's, but being in the event, being open and being flexible. The best laid plans and all that, you can be prepared, but the show is likely going to be different than you expect. So being ready to roll with the punches before, during, and after the experience.
Pretty good.
Yeah, for me, it's the people. So a little bit about what both Elizabeth and Max have said. I think I've walked away from just about every conference feeling like I've met someone who is not just a professional colleague, but could become my friend. And what I mean by that is I'd invite them to my house. I put them on my holiday card list. Not everybody's going to do that, but I think I think reflecting on who those people you really connected with. Um, I don't know what it is about the human experience, but sometimes we know that we found yet another one of our really important people, our VIPs. I think, reflecting on who that is, and then doing something very important to maintain that connection is really important. It might be that you make an excuse that you need to go to that campus because they're doing something innovative and you want to explore that. And at the same time, you get to spend lunch or a dinner with your new pal. And what's really amazing is that over time you create this incredible spider web of people that you're connected to, and they all become incredible resources to you when when you need a new idea, when you're in a bind, when you're working through a difficult situation. Those people outside of your campus can be incredibly objective compared to your friends and colleagues at home because they're not in the middle of it. And there's just so many other valuable things that come from that. To me, it's all about the network and the people. But also, if you're not a people person, then what's the idea? What's the thing that has made you kind of think about something in a different way, make you motivated to try something different? And then maybe if you're one of those in between people, you got this idea and you got this new person, let's talk about it and see what we can do, because maybe it becomes a conference program, or maybe it becomes a new task force for a regional or state or international association. I think that that intentional reflection is just so powerful, and it also is part of that taking a breath moment. And I would really say that when you meet that person or when you hear that idea, you're going to know it right then. And I'm just saying, follow up on that.
Really, really, really wise words. Thank you so much for sharing with all of that. And so, with that said, Elizabeth, Gerry, and Max, I really, really appreciate you taking the time to be here and sharing your amazing advice and experience with all of us. I'm really looking forward to seeing every single one of you in person next week at ACUHO-I's Campus Live 2024. And I hope to connect with everyone watching as well. So we hope that you found everything insightful and helpful. And thank you so much for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.